Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Enterprise Surveillance Solutions Optimized for the Future. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. You may have joined the presentation listening using your computer speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the telephone, just select phone call in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You will have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenters by typing your questions into the questions pane of your control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will collect these and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. Any questions that we do not have time to answer during the session will be responded to you after the webinar. For your information, we will be running some live polls today. Please note that the responses are anonymous. It is my pleasure to introduce your chair today, Jermaine Campbell, Head of Surveillance, Seagate Technology. Over to you, Jermaine.
Thank you very much, and welcome to our webinar today. We're going to be talking about enterprise surveillance solutions. We're going to be talking about data and talking about the evolution of storage and technologies, a lot of topics that we're going to cover. And it's my pleasure to introduce to you our panel, esteemed panelists who have been in the industry for many years and who are able to contribute their thoughts and experiences and their ideas of how technology is going to be changing and used in the future. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Stephen Jones. He's working at Seagate and is head of our business development in emerging markets for EMEA. And welcome, Steve. We also have Soraya Haristian, and very happy to have you here from Milestone. Soraya's working as the community manager for North Europe, and we're going to get lots of insights from her from a Milestone perspective. And of course, we have got Bjorn Kallenfors. We welcome you here, Bjorn, from Axis. He's a key account manager for North Europe. And without delay, we're going to get into our topic. And I think a good place to start is to talk a little bit about data. Because Seagate's a data-centric company. And Steve, as a representative of Seagate, maybe you can just tell us a little bit about data and where it's come from, where is it going, and how is it affecting this particular market in surveillance?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, JC. Yeah, and thanks everybody for joining the session today. So just to start off, I mean, one thing I suppose we can all be pretty sure of is that data creation is just growing at a mind-boggling rate. The graph you see actually on the slide here, it was actually taken from a recent Data Age 2025 report, which was done by a research company, IDC, and sponsored by Seagate. And this just basically just shows the predicted growth in data creation over the next few years. So by 2025, the prediction is that the world is going to be creating, or the global data sphere, as we like to call it, is going to be creating about 175 zettabytes of data every single year. Now, just to put that into perspective, for those who are thinking, well, what's 175 zettabytes, or what's a zettabyte? So back in March this year, Seagate were the first storage vendor to actually ship over 3 zettabytes of data in its history. So in our 40-year history, we've shipped 3 zettabytes, or just over 3 zettabytes of data. And we're going to be creating 175 zettabytes by 2025. So it just shows that we're going to be seeing a massive growth in data creation. And of course, one of these key market segments that is effectively generating that growth is video related technology, video surveillance, edge computing, autonomous vehicles, industry 4.0. There's a whole multitude of different devices and different technologies that is really driving that data growth. And what comes with data growth is obviously the challenge of either ingesting that data, managing the data, pulling it into the cloud, migrating it, data transport. There's many different challenges. And I think one of the challenges that we see inside the video surveillance market is, as systems start to grow, how do we start to manage that data management aspect of our solution? So as probably all of you know, Seagate is synonymous with storage technology, but mainly our hard drive portfolio, and we have a whole portfolio of different products and solutions for various market segments. And when inside video surveillance, we have our Skyhawk product, which is our HDD specifically for edge-based sort of NVRs and DVRs. This is our sort of mass market product. And then as systems start to scale in terms of complexity and performance, we then start to move into sort of more enterprise class solutions. But I think one area of Seagate's portfolio that maybe most companies or most individuals don't know about Seagate is that we actually have a complete solution range of high density chassis. Now, these have actually been available in the market for over 30 years. We've actually shipped over 1 million systems, but our route to market is always typically or traditionally it's been through our big OEM partners, and these are some of the partners you see on the left hand side, the likes of Dell, IBM, and so on. So if anybody's using high density storage solutions, there's a good chance that that solution is actually powered by Seagate. Now, going back about 18 months ago, we made the decision, or the management made the decision to actually bring our solutions into channel under the Seagate brand. So now we basically offer a range of JBOD and SAN solutions, which are very well suited for the video surveillance market. Vertical integration, just to highlight that, I mean, we are the only storage manufacturer globally that provides complete vertical integration. And what that basically means is, the IP, the software, the engineering, the development of all our solutions that you see here are owned by Seagate. So we don't use any third-party technology. And because it's our own IP, it means that we can basically tightly integrate it and also optimize them solutions for certain vertical markets. So back to you, JC.
Thank you, Steve. Really interesting, and I guess the tie between these enterprise data solutions and the explosion in kind of the data growth, right, is these solutions are kind of required in order to kind of keep the expanding amount of data that we have that needs recording or analyzing, on in a solution. We're going to go quickly to a poll and include our attendees in the webinar today. So we take for granted that you're using DVRs and MVRs, and that's kind of the mainstay, right, of surveillance storage. But we're interested to know whether you are using kind of scalable storage, like SAN, for example. So maybe if you can just have a look at the poll question, you should be able to click on a yes or a no and let us know, are you using scalable storage today, yes or no? And I can see some of the polls coming in, so just wait for a few more of you to vote. And I can tell you that it's pretty even, more yes than no, but pretty close. So just 5 more seconds and then we'll close. Okay, I think we can close there and move on to our next slide. So the majority, about 60% of you, are already using kind of SAN storage already. So I guess it's not from a technology point of view something that is new that we're introducing, and but I know that Seagate have got some unique offerings in that particular space. So let's go over to Soraya and have a talk with Milestone about the use of technologies today in bringing real value to business, right? And we know that technology is evolving from a storage side, is evolving from VMS and kind of camera technology as well. But what is the actual benefits and value it's bringing to business? Soraya, can you talk to that?
Yeah, thanks. And thank you, Jermaine. And it's a pleasure to be here. And good morning or good afternoon to everybody who's joining us. If I could ask Steve to just start on the first slide that I think I have. I'm not sure, but I can still see the poll. Maybe everybody else can see my slide. But in answer to your question, Jermaine, when we were talking and discussing technology evolution, it's important to appreciate the current situation we're in right now. And we're going through that massive transformation right now, and we're seeing video sensors collecting 1.6 exabytes of data, and only 10% of this is analyzed. All that automation we're experiencing every day of our lives, be it driving on highways and motorways, dinner in restaurants, or shopping malls, theme parks and public transportation. Steve, I'm not sure, but I've got a Y storage attached network slide. I think there might be another one. Fantastic. And then the next one after that. As I was saying, we're experiencing this data and technology every day, and the queue management ticketing systems. We experience these daily. The technology has matured to a degree where it can make a dramatic difference to the operations of a business and customer experience as well. So this paradigm shift that we're going through, video technology is a powerful driver to this. And end customers and businesses are looking to upgrade their systems and the infrastructure to adopt these technologies. In the new COVID world that we're seeing and we're all going through, most of us are looking to open up businesses now. And we have seen how technology has aided it, from social distancing to contact tracing to occupancy management. All of this data and technology can help with these scenarios. So if we move on to the next slide, Milestone opens up the platform, and open platform really makes it very easy to add this video functionality, not just for security, but also for business systems, business performance. And there's really no limit to what video can do for us, including the customer services and enhancing business and customer experiences. So if you look at normal systems and normal verticals around us, we're dealing with these technologies that we work with. In the next slide, we look at technologies and IT sensors, optical sensors like cameras that are generating all of this metadata. We see that the device itself is getting a lot of intelligence from the edge, with the likes of object classification, traffic control, body-worn cameras dealing with unusual behavior, even bringing in sound, for example, for detecting aggressive behavior and taking reactive measures from it. We get to experience these technologies, as I said, all around us in different industries, different businesses, premises. And what's important is that we're looking at opening up our businesses post-COVID. We see these technologies being used in new ways as well. As I mentioned, the contact tracing and social distancing, face mask detection. These technologies can help us return to the way things used to be, but the same technologies are going to be used again, not necessarily in the same way, more different ways, and it'll be changed to possibly queue management or enhancing the customer experience. So when customers and are visiting a facility, giving them that VIP feel that they have when they access a building or premises with facial recognition, or in the retail space, when you're going in, it gives you that overall comfort feeling, the sense of security when you're on the premises, and the peace of mind you get as a customer that the occupancy is being managed and that you're in a safe environment. All of this matters, and the technology will be reused. Milestone, for example, is driving this technology and this digital transformation from multiple facets. One of these areas is the driver framework, which we have launched this year, and it's aimed at integrating all of these IoT sensors that we see around us. They can be temperature sensors, weather and environment sensors. The driver framework is this framework that was launched for all of our community partners who have those sensors, for them to be integrated in with us very easily for whatever their purpose and whatever the vertical. Another thing that was launched was a VPS, so the video processing server. As mentioned, all of this artificial intelligence that's been heavily deployed, we see it, we experience it all around us. It's important, but how do we get this technology, the business intelligence and the data intelligence from these devices, and make good use out of it? So in the new slide, GStreamers is an open source, for example, and it's heavily used by NVIDIA and Intel communities. So we have all of these great deployments that are happening, and the deployments that are happening around the globe, the artificial intelligence, the machine learning. Our video processing server has made it really easy to incorporate all of this into our platform. So it acts like a connector for these GStreamer communities, whereby we can access the video, they can access the video from our system and run the analytics, the machine learning on top of it, and then bring back the results onto the platform. We can have drive this digital transformation and experience that we see around us, and that's where we partner with yourselves, the Seagate, and with Access, for example. Access, who provides us the source of data, and Seagate, who acts as the management layer to manage all of this data around the scalability purposes. So we can do all of this data processing, all of this intelligence with the data. It's really all the convergence, the technologies being brought together onto one platform so that our customers and the users can benefit from it.
Thank you, Soraya. Really, really interesting, and so many different verticals, right? That video is impacting, right? Or where a follow-on question maybe that where does an installer go to kind of really learn to get the most out of his solution or his equipment? You know, I'm just saying that there's so many different verticals, and you've got these different systems, you know, that can you know, bring value. But how does the installer go from just purchasing a box or a solution to actually learning how to get the most out of it? What does Milestone kind of offer? Any kind of info or support or in this particular area, or where would you send the installer?
Okay, well, that's a very good question, and I think it does give a lot of possibilities, and the Milestone philosophy, that open platform, the openness and working together that we leverage, gives you access to our community. With our community, you do get that flexibility, that breadth of choice for an installer to see the different niche technologies that come from our partners, our technology partners, that could fulfill whatever the requirements. It's necessary to be able to go onto our platform and be able to search and understand that it's all working collaborative together with Milestone. And the Milestone community has something called the Milestone Marketplace. And this is where we collaborate together with our community partners, and all of the partners found on our Milestone Marketplace, the website, and we can show the partners that are validated or validated their technologies, and it's benchmarked and checked that it's all working and integrated in with Milestone's X Protect, so that it gives you that peace of mind that the technology that you're using has been tested and actually works and does what it is that you're looking for. It gives not just the community, but those installers, the integrators, and even end users and customers the ability to explore those different video technologies. And it could be beyond security, it could be different use cases, anything from business performance or improving response rates, to completely innovative IoT devices. They are all brought together on this marketplace. And I would invite anybody to go along, have a look on the marketplace, search for a particular challenge that they need solving, or a technology that's specific that they're looking for, and you'll find Seagates on our marketplace, Axis are on our marketplace, just to give an example of those.
Great, thank you for the that direction and some insights. A good time for us to bring in Bjorn from Axis. Hey Bjorn, Soraya mentioned about technology being able to be used kind of again, right, as the circumstances change, as needs for it change, and you know, in a way, kind of the costs of surveillance in a way is increasing, right, as these newer technologies come in and there's more intelligence and power at on the edge. Can you talk to, you know, the whole idea of technology being valuable today and not expiring, you know, a couple years down the line and having to tear everything out and putting something new again? You know, how are we going to kind of deal with that as we go into the future?
Thanks, JC. Not really. I think the biggest threat to what, when it comes to, you know, any technology investment today, is if you bet on the wrong horse, and by wrong horse I mean if you bet on proprietary, very closed off technology that doesn't really offer you any way of integrating that system or building that system into something else. I think technology is changing so rapidly now, so no one can tell exactly what's going to happen in just, you know, 2-3 years time. But if you've invested in an open platform like ourselves at Axis and also Milestone and yourselves, we can offer you a foundation to grow upon. So regardless of how the world is changing around us as well, you know, given the super strange times that we still live in, we don't know what's going to happen, but we know that if you have a foundation that is open, you have the right building blocks, that you can actually start building something that will enable you to rapidly change quickly, depending on the type of situations that you're in, depending on how the world is developing. I would say another thing is very fundamental, and that is how we view network video technology. Today, we apply a very one-to-one type of relationship when it comes to how we look at video. And by one-to-one, I mean, we have a network video camera feeding a video stream into a video management system that then gets stored somewhere. That is a very, you know, video camera into a VMS. However, if you look at what we have available today in terms of the technology available, not just on the edge, but also in the cloud and also from a server side, is that you can start deploying a one-to-many type relationship where you have the very traditional way of looking at video, where you have, you know, the video into a video management system, but also using different types of analytics and different types of object classification engines to actually potentially count objects, for example. So if you take a city, for example, if you look all around the world, you will have city squares that already today has deployments of network video cameras that are looking at the city square from, you know, a rather traditional type of sense, where you have something has happened and you retroactively go in and analyze those images. And like Soraya said, of those, what was it, 1.6 exabytes that was, you know, generated every day, only 10% gets analyzed. And I believe that those 10%, you have manual analysis also included in that. So someone manually looking at an image to see if something has happened. But if you look at the technology available today through these open partnerships, you can actually deploy in a city context, for example, not just a security installation that looks at something retroactively when it has happened, but also you can count people, so you can have a real-time feedback loop of how a city is actually being utilized. If you look at cities around the world, most cities still rely on quite manual ways of actually counting how people are actually moving about in the city. It can be different, people actually standing by the roadside and counting bicyclists, for example, to very analog ways of counting, cars down the road, for example. And you often use these very sporadically throughout the year, so you don't really get a real-time feedback loop that you can go to get a, this is the daily use of this street, for example, from a car perspective. So I believe that by deploying open technology and fundamentally start changing how you actually look at video, you will be able to use technology and share that data, that metadata being analyzed and caught by the video by different departments. From a city perspective, you can then have cameras being used by multiple departments rather than having one department in charge of video and looking at it from one very, very siloed perspective. If you go to the next slide, you'll see another way or another sort of use case area. If you look at different types of manufacturing plants where you actually have sometimes a very hazardous environment where you actually have to have a lot of safety equipment just to actually enter the site, by actually connecting video and these smart video analytics algorithms that you can actually put straight on the edge on the actual camera, you could actually start recognizing if people are actually high with vests, if they're using helmets or not. That could be connected to an actual access control system, so that there is no physical way for you to actually enter into a building site, for example, if you're not wearing the right gear. This is something that is already being deployed, but I wouldn't stop there with just using it for the health and safety. If you add on the perspective from the first case, actually by counting people and how people are actually moving about, you're adding more and more use cases along the way. And I think it's our obligation in a way from a technology vendor perspective is, of course, by producing an open technology, we need to keep on our toes in terms of actually developing something that people want to use. Otherwise, people can actually change this out for something else. So it gives customers a better control of what they have. So they're not being locked into one vendor and being locked into one type of technology, but they rather are in control of their equipment so that they actually can change depending on who's actually doing it the best, who's actually delivering best of breed. So if you go to the next slide, and I think this is a really, really interesting example. Of course, aviation has suffered, tremendously during these crazy times that we're in, and we are slowly but surely getting back to something that some people like to call new normal. But if you look at passenger flow, we know that this will be extremely important in terms of how we actually feel comfortable in an aviation context. If we're going back to something that we call normal, will we be comfortable by moving about with so many people in so crowded lines that we're all used to when being at an airport? Or can you work proactively with video equipment in order to actually create better paths of how people are moving about? Can you work smarter? And maybe this crazy pandemic is actually putting some really good demands on how we are forcing airports, for example, to use better methods in order to actually measure how we can move about. And using video is a really good example of having a sensor that doesn't take breaks, a sensor that doesn't take vacation, for example, that gives you a real-time feedback loop of how an airport is actually being used at all times, 24/7, 7 days a week. It's being used to some extent today, but I think we're still at a very one-to-one type of relationship where you have dedicated cameras to measure passenger flow, for example. You have dedicated cameras for physical security. Instead of actually trying to combine these technologies by applying this one-to-many methodology, you will be able to start using the same infrastructure and able to capture more data, but actually sharing the same infrastructure in order to do so. And I really believe that we will see more and more of these sort of smart deployments being deployed all over the world, not just in cities, in manufacturing, or in construction sites, or in aviation, but it can be deployed anywhere, in a retail context, for example, or anywhere where there is a lot of people moving about. The hospitals, for example, as well. And I think by just taking a step back and looking at it and asking yourself to a certain degree, is this a one-to-one type of installation, or are we actually utilizing the technology to its full extent in order to create this one-to-many approach that I've been talking about?
Great, Bjorn. Thank you for these insights. And a one-to-many, I think, is a great kind of catchphrase, right? To kind of encapsulate, this kind of idea, this kind of thought, right? It brings us on to our next poll. So if I can have the next poll that comes up, just inviting the attendees again to answer this question of, have you worked recently with AI solutions? And have you worked recently with AI solutions? So just a yes or a no, and please click in. And I guess we wanted to know here whether this is something manufacturers are pushing down, right? And people don't actually use, and it's like my 3D TV, right? I don't know if we all got caught up in that hype, right? I bought my TV and my glasses, but in the end, I didn't really use it. Is AI, is this something that is real life and we're actually using in our day-to-day business? So just wait a few more minutes for a few more votes to come in. And I'm not sure whether you can see the info coming in, the responses, but we've pretty much got most people in, and I can say, yeah, twice as many people have said yes, that they've had to work with AI solutions recently. So I guess this whole point of connected to many, one to many, I think it's something we can really keep in our minds, and we can lean on Milestone, Seagate, and Axis to help us to deploy that kind of a solution. So why don't we come to back to Steve again, just to talk about SAN in particular, right? We've talked to Steve, to Milestone, talked to us about all these different verticals that are using, these technologies and sensors and so on. We've talked to Axis about how it can be redeployed, and you can use the same technology across to cover many different jobs. When it comes to the storage, then, why a SAN storage? Why can't I just keep putting a hard drive in my DVR and putting that on the edge? Steve, what's the idea behind SAN storage? Over to you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks, JC. Yeah, if we can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah. So look, I've got a couple of slides just to run through. I suppose the point I really want to sort of make, and definitely sort of passing on some of my experience through the last few years that I've spent at Seagate, supporting the surveillance team. As systems start to grow and become more complex, storage architecture is something that needs to deliver on several key points. And I think everybody's probably aware of traditional architecture. Bjorn was saying before, you've got your cameras, you've got your network, you've got your VMS, and you've got your server stroke network video recorder. And I think a lot of the systems that we see deployed today have got a combination of typical network video recorder stroke server, which has onboard storage or direct attached storage. And for smaller type systems, that's absolutely fine. But of course, the challenge is as systems start to scale and become more complex, you start to bring in more technology. Maybe the requirements from the end user changes. There's more emphasis now on being or providing, very stable, very secure, mission critical type solutions. So, we see that, enterprise systems or scalable storage solutions really need to be, simplistic in terms of they need to be very easy to manage. They need to scale very easily. So, they want to be extremely flexible. Scaling traditional architecture, the only option you've really got to scale in terms of adding more cameras, or you're scaling in terms of you need more storage for whatever reason. Typically, we see the market just adds more servers. But the problem with that is, you can add more servers, which is great. You can add your compute, you can add your storage, but that also introduces bottlenecks within inside the system. And also it also introduces sort of single point of failure. So we can move on to the next slide. What I really want to sort of talk about today, just spend a few more minutes on, is to talk about SAN architecture. So when we talk about our systems, we have JBOD, which is our traditional just a bunch of disks, which is effectively high capacity chassis populated with multiple hard drives. But when we come on to SAN, SAN and SAN architecture is very different. So typically what we're doing is we're actually decoupling the compute away from the storage. So your compute does your compute, the ingestion and management of your camera streams, but effectively we create a separate network where you then deploy your storage architecture. Now, this typically has several benefits. Obviously, it increases flexibility and scalability. You're able to interconnect multiple servers accessing petabyte scale data. And because we're working on block storage, the SAN is actually presented to the host as if it was directly attached. So you've got really high performance. It also reduces waste and increases on your return on investment. They're very intelligent disk arrays with very high performance. And when we talk about high performance, the controllers, and again, going back to the vertical integration before, all this technology is Seagate end-to-end. The controllers that we deploy in our SAN solutions come as or offered as dual redundant. So you've got dual redundant controllers. They're also activated under an active mode. So effectively, the two controllers are both working. They're configured in active mode, so you've got load sharing or load balancing across the two controllers. But in the event of a controller failing, effectively everything's going to fail over to the other controller. And everything is also hot swappable. So you've got hot swappable controllers, you've got hot swappable power supplies, fans, HDDs, and so on. In terms of performance, we have different flavors of controller. We class these as fast, faster, and fastest. And our fastest controller allows us to sequentially write up to about 5.5 gigabytes of data per second. This isn't gigabits, this is gigabytes per second. So we've got massive throughput availability. And in some of the recent stress tests that we've done with various VMS partners, including Milestone, we've been able to really prove that these systems can really scale into potentially thousands of cameras. One of the recent tests that we did at our Singapore lab, we actually set up a single server running 10 virtual machines, and on each of these 10 virtual machines we were streaming 100 4K camera streams. So across the whole system we had over 1,000 cameras. In fact, we were streaming 2 streams from each camera. So effectively we had 2,000 streams, but 1,000 of them streams were 4K. The overall throughput was about 2.2 gigabytes per second, and the results of that test effectively proved that we were using less than 50% of our controller utilization, and also we experienced 0 frame loss across all the drives in that drive pool. And that was actually using one of our single standalone 5U84. So it was a 5U chassis, 84 populated drives, dual controller, and again we were only using or utilizing less than 50% of the performance overhead. So when we start to move into these sort of more enterprise class solutions, you know, they offer, you know, extremely robust architecture, enterprise class, what we class as always on, always available. We use this marketing term 5 nines, which is always used in the enterprise world. So again, you know, it's a slightly different architecture to what probably a lot of people are used to and what a lot of people typically deploy. And the added benefit of SAN as well is you can also get an optional software suite. What's offered by Seagate, we provide things like replication, auto tiering, which allows you to basically auto tier between SSD and HDD inside your same system. Thin provisioning. So thin provisioning is where you basically offer the system, let's say at the petabyte, but you only populate it at maybe half a petabyte. And as the system starts to require more storage, it will automatically send the service provider an email just to notify them that you need to start to provision more storage inside the overall solution. And probably one of the most important and critical and value add features that we also provide, and this comes standard with all our SAN solutions, is a technology called ADAPT. So ADAPT is a type of erasure coding technology. One of the challenges that we see in scalable CCTV systems is, you know, as manufacturers like Seagate start to or continue to evolve and bring out higher capacity drives, you want to use that highest capacity drive inside your system, because that's part of the actual scalability. And I'll give you an example. So currently we're on 18 terabyte drives. If you fully populate a 106 chassis of ours, which is our high-end JBOD chassis, you can actually get 1.9 petabytes of storage inside one unit. Inside our 84 bay, you're getting about 1.3 petabytes. What you don't want to be doing is using a lower capacity drive inside a high density chassis, because you know you want that scalability, and also you want to offer the greatest capacity you can for your solution. Now, the issue we have with RAID 5 and RAID 6 is if you do have a failed drive, when that drive or when the replacement drive is actually being rebuilt, this is where your performance really degrades, because effectively all your performance is going through a single drive that's actually being rebuilt. What ADAPT allows us to do is we basically disperse the parity across all the drives in the drive pool, and what this delivers is we can actually decrease the build time by about 95%. So if you're looking at an 18 terabyte drive and an 18 terabyte drive fails and you replace it, you could potentially be looking at, you know, days and days and days to actually rebuild that drive under like a RAID 5 or a RAID 6 scenario. We can actually rebuild that drive depending on the size of the solution, but we can rebuild that drive up to 95% quicker using this ADAPT technology. And that ADAPT technology is provided as standard inside all our SAN solutions. And of course, that is very relevant for the video surveillance market, you know, because it allows the customer to use the highest capacity drives. And as we going, you know, the next few quarters, you're going to be seeing, you know, 20 plus terabytes. And over the next few years, you're going to be seeing 30, 40, 50 terabytes available in single hard drives. And of course, customers want to use the best, latest technology inside their solutions. So again, you know, just to close, SAN is a slightly different architecture, but it's block level. You know, it presents itself as a direct attached storage device, so it's very high performance. Because it's a standalone SAN, you can scale, and also you can scale to, you know, multiple petabytes, and also you can scale in terms of, you know, number of cameras that are physically connected to the unit, because you've got this real high performance. And again, it's all enterprise class components, dual redundancy, and also if you want to scale out, you know, if you reach the threshold or the bottleneck, you can also add just another SAN to, you know, to scale out your solution for future growth. So yeah, hope that's answered your question, JC.
It's great, thank you, Steve. And yes, it seems like the ideal solution as we look forward, right, into what's happening with surveillance and this growth of data, with the plethora of sensors and applications. It makes a lot of sense. I think we've got one more poll for our attendees and our audience, so I hope that they're all ready to answer this one. And this is specifically about Seagate SAN storage now. Would you like to know more about Seagate SAN storage? Would you like to know more? It's not something we can easily get across, I guess, in a few minutes on a webinar, but we've got ways to follow up and send more information out, or have an expert, you know, give you a call one-on-one and share more information with you. So polls just coming in. I think most people have voted. I'll just leave a time for a little bit more, and I can share with you, just in case you can't see the answers. Yeah, that kind of around 90% would like to know more about these SAN storage solutions. So that's great. Let's invite everybody back onto the panel, and we'll kind of wrap this up with this question, which is about the partnership, right? I think we've talked a little bit about this already, but maybe we can just share a little bit more about the importance of partnership between Seagate, Axis, Milestone. We had Bjorn, you talked to us a little bit about open platform, right, and being open. We had Soraya talking to us about the marketplace at Milestone. Just share a little bit more maybe about the importance of a partnership. Maybe I point to Soraya first of all. From your perspective, you know,
Yeah.
how important is it to kind of have a real partnership with your vendors?
I would say definitely that partnership is key. Where the industry has evolved, it's not possible, it's not doable to work in silos, where we have, and we've been discussing for the whole of this webinar about the convergence and data convergence. Imagine if we only had the one source of data, the cameras or devices on the edge. You wouldn't be able to do very much with just that data if you only had that source. So you would need the video management platform to visualize this data and to be able to see and manage it. And then at the back end, the infrastructure, like Seagate, to manage the data and to retain the data and to do the processing on top of it, bringing in the information and the intelligence out of this data and deliver the outcome and the desired results. So partnerships, I think, really are key to an open platform system to get that collaborative approach. And as you can see on our marketplace that we mentioned before, the whole partnership together is what makes us deliver really the best of breed to our customers.
Thank you. There are, you know, to play devil's advocate, Bjorn, you know, some kind of skeptic, right, may just say, hold on, well, you got all different vendors, right, all different manufacturers involved in the solution. you know, who's has ownership? You know, who's actually got ownership of this working or that working? You know, maybe from your perspective, what would you say maybe to the skeptic who thinks, well, the more manufacturers you have involved is the more that they're going to point at each other, right? To blame. You any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think first of all, if you look at any technology vendor today wants to be unique in functionality and the way that they do business, and when it comes down to the functionality bit, it's all about making sure that that is integrated into another system. Otherwise, that functionality, however unique and however great that is, it's not usable. So I always say that we're all open, but we're more open with some. So it's a very sort of can be very selective. But I think there's no secret that we work together. For example, we're doing this together. I think there are certain sanity checks that you can do as a user of technology when you actually invest in technology, making sure that there is dedicated technology integrations between the companies. There are dedicated drivers that the company are releasing in order to actually make your functionality work in. If we take the milestone access, for example, there are very tangible, we call it the access milestone optimizer, which is a tangible driver pack that makes sure that access functionality is actually supported in the milestone video management system. I think those are the kinds of questions you as a buyer of technology need to ask your vendor that you're working with. Do you have tangible examples of where you actually have worked together, which gives us a sort of a receipt that this will actually work when we deploy it? Because we're seeing a lot of everyone has an open API these days, so it has sort of lost meaning when you say that. So you need to actually provide evidence to support that claim. But how are those APIs used? In our context, we have a dedicated driver pack for Milestone, which makes access stand out in the Milestone context, for example. So look for dedicated developments between the two companies, or between three companies, between four companies, whatever you're choosing between. You need to ask for those very tangible developments.
Great, thank you. A great response. And Steve, you kind of mentioned earlier on about this kind of tests that kind of happened over in Singapore, right, with these 10 systems with 100 streams coming through each system, and effectively was I think it was like 200 streams, I think you went on to say, right? So it's 1,000 4K streams, no frames being lost and so on. How is that kind of thing kind of put together? And what does Seagate, I guess there's some kind of validation or something that we get, right, with the partner that we're working with, and how do we kind of share that with our prospective customers? Are you able to talk to that?
Yeah, of course. If we can move on to the next slide, I can talk a bit about the some of the testing that we've recently conducted with Milestone. But I think in terms of the integration and the validation, I think customers, and whether the customer's an end user, whether it's a reseller, whether it's an installer, customers want predictable performance, and predictable performance is typically provided through validation of your system with other ecosystem partners. Seagate were fairly new to this, going back 18 months ago when we first looked at bringing these types of solutions into the video surveillance market, and we knew we really had to engage with the ecosystem, or with some ecosystem partners. We obviously chose the likes of Milestone and Axis because of their leading role in the video surveillance market in terms of device technology, integrated technology, platform and integration. And of course, when we talk about when Seagate talk about scalability, and complex systems, typically what this means is you've got various different technologies. It's a best of breed approach, isn't it? Somebody wants to use a best of breed camera with a best of breed platform, with a best of breed storage architecture, maybe, you know, select the best AI, the best people counting technology, whatever it may be. And of course, you need to have a platform that brings all these solutions together. But in terms of managing your storage, and also making sure that that storage is robust, it's capable of delivering the performance that's actually required, that then forms part of that validation. So what we did, or what we've been doing over the last 12-18 months, is really validating our solutions with the global leaders in video surveillance technology, so we can basically underpin their technology with our scalable storage solutions, but also to validate that with some key partners as well. So we've actually been providing eval units to some of the big surveillance distributors in the EMEA region, where they actually want to do their own validation. So yes, we can validate through an ecosystem partner, but we can also validate, potentially on a project by project basis, with either the systems integrator or the value added distributor. But again, to us, it's all about delivering predictable performance. I mean, this storage testing that we did with Milestone, unfortunately, we didn't really stress test our solution. We were only streaming 800 cameras, but we made the assumption from the test results that we obtained through that test that we could, easily stream, well over 2,000 4K cameras into a single 5U84. So this 5U84, again, going back to my previous discussion, it's got 2 controllers in the back, really high performance, all enterprise class, and of course we can add on additional storage units to that. In fact, on the 5U84 you can actually add 3 additional storage units, so you can actually provide over 6 petabytes of storage in a single SAN solution. So you can see there, in terms of performance and scalability, you can really address them larger, mid-tier to large tier solutions that we're starting to see. I mean, I know the Middle East is probably one region where we associate with these larger systems, but these larger systems are now starting to be deployed, in many different cities across many growth verticals, and the same challenges, in terms of ingestion of data, performance, enterprise class security, scalability, that all very relevant. But again, being part of this ecosystem partnership with many video surveillance technology partners is critical for Seagate's success.
Great, thank you, Steve. And I guess if people want to know more, we have a partner program and I think that there'll be a link towards the end of the presentation. Here it is up on the screen now. So you can just go and type ahead and type in seagate.com/partners, and you can register to become a partner. And there you'll actually get some really great access to information about EDS. You can deal register on there as well, and get more find out kind of the costs and pricing versus systems maybe you've already put into the market, because these systems also are very competitively priced. We've got maybe just 1 minute, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, just for any questions that have come, or any questions that you may have as attendees. Feel free to just pop that into the question box. But I think that the panelists that we've had here have done a great job in talking to their particular subject matter and going into some real detail. So I think it's been a great session, and I think we've all learned a lot here. So I don't see questions that have come through. So based on that, I think I'm gonna say thank you to Bjorn and to Soraya and to Steve. And thank you to all the attendees, the time that you've taken out of your day to listen to us, and hoping that we can be in contact with you again in the near future. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jermaine.
Thanks, JC. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Just to let our audience know that once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a survey on the presentation, and we would appreciate if you would complete that and provide your feedback. You will also receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours with a link to view a recording of today's webinar. On behalf of Seagate Technology and our presenters, thank you for joining us today and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.